On my schedule for today is a lot of putting up, some things I need to, we say putting up, things I'm going to can and make so that we can enjoy this winter. The first thing I'm going to get started with, is really my main thing that I'm doing today, is I want to make some Chow Chow. And I'll tell you, I'll read the recipe to you and tell you about it. But in case you didn't know what Chow Chow is, it's a type of pickle. Think of pickles. So I got out some of my cooking books just to read you a very little intro about it from the various different people. There's a Chow Chow recipe in mine in Jim's book, Celebrating Southern Appalachian Food. I'm not going to make that one today, though. It's Jim's recipe, and it's really good. I'm sure I've never made it, but I'm just going to make the one that I usually make for my family. I do have a video about Chow Chow, but it's a fermented Chow Chow. And I'll link to that in the description below in case you've missed it. It's really, really tasty too, really good. The thing about Chow Chows is, it indicates it in the things that I'm going to read, is there's so many different recipes. So there's lots of different ones, and you just have to kind of figure out what works for you and what you like the best. The recipe that I'm sharing today is, I actually learned it many years ago at the John C. Campbell Folk School, and it's North Carolina Chow Chow was the name that the person that shared it with me, what they called it, North Carolina Chow Chow. I really like it. Lots of the different recipes you'll see have different ingredients. Most all of them have cabbage. A lot of them have cucumbers. The one I'm using today doesn't have cucumbers in it. And you can, the one in mine and Jim's book, we could just start with that. I'll read it to you. I won't read the recipe, but I'll tell you it's on page 184, so if you want to go read or go see Jim's recipe, and I do want to make it, but it may be next year before I get to try his recipe. It's interesting to me in that it uses dried pepper. I'm going to use, you can see I've got my peppers out here, I'm going to use fresh pepper, but it uses dried pepper, so I think that's really, really interesting. But the part I wanted to read to you about, let's see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. No, that's totally not it. I started to read to you about jelly and biscuits. That's totally not it. So the part that I was going to read in here is really just a mention. It's not really giving you much information, but it's Jim's recipe for crowder peas. If you've ever had crowder peas, they're so good. And in the same way that Chow Chow goes with crowder peas, that's what most often that we would eat it with is something like crowder peas, but mostly soup beans. So that's pinto beans for us. But Jim says, I won't read you all of that, but just in the at the very end of it, what he's talking about. Cook in a saucepan until done, and if you happen to be a fan of Chow Chow, as I am, top them with it. Otherwise, just enjoy. Anyway, so it is mentioned in here, and Jim does have a recipe. I've just not made it yet. So let me put that back. Knocked off one of my cups there, but they'll be okay. I didn't break anything. It was just a metal cup. So then the ones I wanted to read to you. This is one of my favorite cookbooks, More Than Moonshine by Sydney Saylor Farr. I really love it. I love the recipes in it. All the ones I've tried I've really enjoyed, and I love it because it's got a lot of, she talks about her family and her husband's family in it, so I really love that. So this is just a little intro that she's got in her section about pickles. So it says, in addition to the different kinds of pickles, there were dozens of relishes to accompany just about any kettle of soup beans, bowl of potatoes, serving of shuck beans, or platter of fried chicken. One unusual kind of relish is called Chow Chow. There are several versions of this recipe, but I want to share my mother-in-law's recipe. When Grover and I set up housekeeping, his mother and aunts helped load our pantry shelves with home-canned fruits, vegetables, pickles, and relish. Among them were several jars of Chow Chow. Then she goes on to share her recipe of that, or her mother-in-law's. Let me put that down. This is another one of my favorite cookbooks that I really, really like. It's Smokehouse Ham, Spoon Bread, and Scoopered on Wine by Joseph E. Dabney. And so in it, he says, this is a great field, relishes, chow chows, and chutneys. This is a great field unto itself. Mountain folk love to make these as a tangy pizzazz for their fall and winter tables to accompany fresh pork and wild meats, indeed for the entire year as garnishes and condiments. Mountain people love relishes to go with springtime greens. And then he goes on to talk about the following recipes that's coming there in the book. This is one that I thought was really, really fascinating that I found. This is Mountain Country Cooking by Mark Son. So in it, he says, pickles, relishes, and chow chow. Years ago and today, mountaineers made all sorts of pickles, bread and butter pickles, dill pickles, dilly beans, mixed pickles, watermelon rind pickles, pickled beans, pickled corn, pickled eggs, pickled grapes, pickled onions, and pickled pears. Today, pickles are a treat, and we often give them as gifts. It does make a wonderful gift. Lots of times that's what I give for a gift at Christmas. A jar of jelly and maybe a jar of pickles or chow chow. Also called chow chow, the following mixed vegetable preserve is a relish of great importance and popularity. Many think that Chinese laborers introduced it into this country about 1850 when they worked on our railroads. Its Chinese origin is suggested not only by its name, but also by the seasonings that include a mixture of turmeric and various mustards. A chow chow is any mixed vegetable relish. While most recipes call for 5 or more vegetables, and then he goes on to talk about it, they're an exception to that rule. Anyway, really interesting. I've never really read that before. I've had this book for years, but somehow I'd missed that or just never read the section on chow chow, so I thought that was fascinating. So the recipe that I'm using today, I've shared it on the Blind Pig before, so I will link to that post so you can go over there and see it all written out. But I will go ahead and tell you, it is interesting that it uses turmeric and also the mustard that was mentioned there. So I'm going to have 2 quarts of chopped cabbage, 2 quarts of chopped cabbage. I've got my cabbage that me and Matt harvested. This is just some that's been hanging out in the refrigerator. I'll have to cut a little bit of the outer pieces off, and I've probably got way too much there, but what I don't use, I'll put back in the refrigerator. 1 quart of cored chopped green tomatoes. I don't have that. We'll have to go out in the yard and get some from the garden. 6 red bell peppers, seeded and chopped. I've got those over here behind me. 6 sweet green peppers, seeded and chopped. I've got those over there. And I'm not sure I can't remember. I think maybe I'm 1 short, but I've got some of our peppers that we grew that I'll add. 6 onions, peeled and chopped. Now my onions were really small, so I've got more than 6 just to make up for that smallness. 1/4 cup of kosher salt, and 2 to 3 chopped hot peppers is optional. I don't always put those in at all. Most of the time I don't, but I've got 3 jalapenos over there that a dear sweet lady brought me recently, so I'm gonna use those. And then, so that's kind of the first part. We're going to get all that together. Well, I'll read you the directions in a minute, but let me tell you the second part is that you're going to need 1 quart distilled white vinegar, 2 1/2 cups sugar, 1 tablespoon mustard seed ground, 1/2 teaspoon turmeric, 1/2 tablespoon ground ginger, 1 tablespoon mustard seed, 2 1/2 tablespoons celery seed, 1 tablespoon mixed pickling spice tied in a cheesecloth bag. So those first ones that I read out, you're going to combine that all in a large bowl, with the salt, mix it all up together and let it stand for 4 hours. Then the next part is that we're going to, mix all the vinegar and all those wonderful spices and the sugar together. And we're going to bring it to a boil, lower heat, and let simmer 10 minutes. Drain the cabbage vegetable mixture well. Add them to simmer in vinegar and cook until heated through. And then remove the spice bag, and then you're going to put it in your jars and water bath it for 10 minutes. So that is a process. That's a real process, but it's so good and so worth it when you open it to eat with your soup beans or your meat, or even just put it on a piece of toast. It's just so tasty, so good. Reading this reminds me that I didn't find the place I wanted to in mine and Jim's book. There is a place where we talk about the readily availability of vinegar in the mountains of Appalachia, because apple trees are grown in so many areas, and they do very well in so many areas. So vinegar was something that was just readily available for lots of other pickles, but also for chow chow when you think about that. So my first thing I need to do is head out to the garden and get my, a quart of cored chopped green tomatoes. So I need to go do that, and then I can get ready to start chopping everything up. On my way out to the big tomatoes, I can't help but stop and eat some of the little ones. Found me some blueberries too. Petunias are looking especially pretty this morning. While I'm out here, I might as well see if there's any cucumbers. So I washed up the tomatoes and I cut them up, and luckily I picked just exactly enough. I ended up with a quart. Now when it comes to chopping up all these vegetables, I'm about to start on the onions and the peppers and the cabbage. It really depends on the texture that you want your chow chow. Like maybe you want it really coarse, so you should probably use a knife. I don't mind if the texture is real small, and it makes it so much faster to use the food processor. So I just put the stuff in there and pulse it. Even the tomatoes and the peppers that are it's really easy to go too far with them and end up with liquid. I still prefer using the processor just because it makes it so much faster. It's just so much faster than using a knife. But you could certainly use a knife. You could use like a chopper, hand chopper. You could, I'm sure there's other things, a food mill or not a food mill, but a box scraper or something like that. Just whatever texture you prefer is really what you need to use. But a knife works really good if that's all you've got. It just takes longer. So now that we've got those, I'm going to start chopping up the peppers. And before I do that though, I was going to show you, for the first step, I'm going to use these 2 big bowls. I'll have to divide it into both to make it fit. Miss Cindy got me these bowls ages ago at a yard sale or something like that, and I really love them. I've had them during the summer. I kind of leave them on the porch usually, so they're handy because I keep them way back in one of my cabinets. So I rinsed them out. I've got some water in them. I'll pour that water out, although it probably wouldn't hurt anything. So I had to rinse them out since they were on the porch. But I'm going to go ahead and just put half of my, well, maybe I will. Maybe I'll do this one. And then get rid of the water in this one. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just start by putting half of the tomatoes in each. I might have got a little bit more in that one. And a spoonful back. And then I'll go back to chopping. Now I'm just going to start on the peppers. I think I said I was going to do peppers first, but either way, it doesn't matter at all. I did have one little piece of onion that I found that didn't chop up, so I'm just going to put it in here with the peppers. And then I found one more tomato that was hiding, and actually now that I said that, I see one more little tomato. I didn't mean to pull these little bitty ones off. There's another one that I did, so I need to use them definitely. I'll throw it in there. Now, if you're going to use a food processor with peppers, they do turn into liquid so quickly. So just be aware of that. The pulsing is your friend. Of course, if it all turned into liquid, the flavor would still be there. You just wouldn't have those pretty pieces of pepper. When I get to the jalapenos, I'll probably try to find me a pair of gloves and put them on, just so that I don't end up with my hands stinging all day. And the recipe says 2 to 3 hot peppers, but you could increase that. You could use more hot peppers and get rid of some of these. This, as you can see, this is I don't know why I got to thinking I was dicing it. I don't need to cut them that little, do I? Lost my train of what I was doing while I was talking. You don't need to, as you can see, it's just such an easy recipe as far as switching stuff up. You could, if you don't have enough peppers, you could add some cucumbers. That's probably what I should have done, is because instead of buying peppers, because I had plenty of cucumbers, but I just wasn't thinking. I used to work with a dear sweet lady, and I think it was her uncle, had like was a farm, you know, where he had to grow stuff to sell, like what do you call it, a market farm, truck farm, anyway, where he grew stuff. But at the end of the season, he would, whatever was, you know, there'd become a point where he would just be done with it. And he would tell her and her family and other people, I'm sure too, that they could go and just harvest whatever was left. And so sometimes she would bring me just bags of red peppers, and it would just be so great. Me and Matt would make roasted red pepper soup. Of course, I'd make pepper jelly out of them. We would just roast them and eat them. It was so good. I was so grateful to get them. You can be really picky and like get out that vein part. Kind of, a lot of people will trim that out. I never do. I just leave it. Whether we're eating them or I'm making soup or jelly or whatever, I just leave it. Some of these had some bad places in them. There's a bad place right there. Got all the peppers chopped up. I ended up adding a few more hot peppers because I got to thinking those are so small. So I added, I don't know, 2 or 3 more of the jalapenos. Matt will be happy about that. Maybe it won't be too hot for me to enjoy. So this is one of the little cabbages that Matt and I grew. I have to trim off the outer leaves just where it's kind of got soft, being in the refrigerator since we first harvested them. I'd love to do like the old people and put some in the ground, hold them up, but I've never done that. Again, with the cabbage, you could certainly chop it up if you wanted it in larger pieces. Here's the core. That's my part I like to eat. It's basically all core on that one. Okay, this is a little bit more than 2 quarts of cabbage, but that'll be okay. Going on the theory that you can kind of massage it to be what you want it to be, and I don't want to waste the rest of the cabbage. It's probably, I don't know, maybe a cup more than 2 quarts. Okay, I'm going to divide the cabbage between the 2 bowls. There's some pieces I left pretty big, but I think that'll be okay. Got a mess, but you can't do this without making a big mess. That's just part of it. So I'm going to start stirring it up. Oh, I wish you was here to smell it. Onions and all those peppers. It smells so good. Okay, I've got my salt. I'm gonna divide it between it's kind of got hard while I've been sitting here, or while I've been working. Just divide it between the 2. Give it another big stir. I think I just threw some on the floor. I have to get that up. Okay, now that I've got that situated, I move them over to my table, cover them up, and let those sit. The recipe says for 4 hours. I've done it for less than, if I'm pushed, like for 3 hours, and it still turns out okay. But I've got a lot of other things I need to do, so I'm gonna get these situated over there, get the kitchen cleaned up, and then I'll be on to the next putting up for today. I got everything cleaned up, swept the floor where I made a big mess. My stuff's still over there percolating away until I'm ready to do that later this evening. I've also got some of my jars washed up because now I'm on to my next chore of putting up for today, and I need to make some jelly. Now we've been getting great grapes this year, pretty much all gone now except for the wild ones, and I'm not sure if we'll beat the possums and the raccoons to them. But the other grapes that we have up here, and then also the ones my brother left down at Corey and Austin's, they just really produced great this year. But instead of, when I'm really busy, instead of like taking time to actually go ahead and make, if I'm going to make grape jelly, I just like to can the juice, and then we can enjoy the juice if we want to drink grape juice, but also I can pull those jars out and make jelly at a later date. If you make jelly from fresh things like that, thinking about grapes, there's like a two-step process. Well, first you've got to get the juice out of the grapes, and then you've got to make the jelly. So dividing it up like that and going ahead and canning it kind of takes that first step. That's all over with. And then the second step, making the jelly, is super easy, or at least I think it is, and it is. If you've never made jelly, you could definitely make it. Another tip is, if you don't have, you don't have your own access to grapes, don't have your own grapes or anyone that'll share with you, you can just use grape juice. You can find 100% grape juice at the store, at the grocery store. One of Granny's aunts, she lived in a city, and so she didn't, she lived in like an apartment, didn't have any place for herself to garden, but she had those memories of gardening and being around fresh grapes and berries and things like that. So that's what she would do. She would buy grape juice and buy apple juice, and she'd make her jelly with that, and it was really good and really tasty. So that's definitely an option for you if you don't have access to the grapes. So this grape jelly recipe, there's all kinds of recipes, and if you're someone like me that likes to use Sure Gel pectin, there's always a little insert inside that box that tells you how to make jelly or jam, freezer jam even. I like jelly. I prefer jelly over jam. As far as things like grapes, or, well, you'd get the seed out of the grape either way, but like thinking about blackberries, I would rather have the jelly than the jam because I don't like the little seeds. Anyway, so that's a good place to find a recipe, just a standard recipe if you want to do that. You can, of course, find them online, and you can find the one I'm using today in mine and Jim's cookbook, Celebrating Southern Appalachian Food. So grape jelly, you need 5 cups of grape juice, 1 box of fruit pectin, whatever brand you like, 7 cups of sugar. We're going to pour the juice into the large sauce pot and stir in the pectin. We're going to cook over medium-high heat, bring mixture to a full rolling boil. Then we're going to add all that sugar at once. Stir it, make sure it all gets incorporated. And then when it returns to a full boil again, you boil for 1 minute, and then you immediately put it in your hot jars and seal it. Now, if you don't want to use pectin, that's the old way of doing it. You can just use the sugar and the gel and the grape juice, or whatever it is that you're making, and you just have to cook it to that temperature where it actually gels. I've done that before, and I just find it so much easier to use pectin. I'm just taking the easy way out, so it always gels perfectly, and I don't have to worry about it, and it don't take as long to cook it, but that's personal preference. You have to do what works for you. Now, when I was down there, this is some of the juice that I put up this year. No, this is not. That's not either. None of this is. Okay, so that's what I did when I was thinking I had some from this year up here. That may be over there, my 1 jar. But when I was down there looking around to bring some jars up here, I realized, well, I had a few left from last year. That's what this is, the 23. I did that last year. Then I even found a couple that I had from 2022. Still perfectly good, still sealed. So I'm going to use my oldest. I'm going to go ahead and use those. I poured 1 jar in just to see. I couldn't remember how many cups is in a quart, but 4 cups, so if this is 4. And today, since I'm really making a lot of jelly because we're almost totally out, I think we are totally out of the grape, I'm going to go ahead and make like a double run. I'm going to make a double run. I probably should even do a triple, but for today, I'll just do a double. So I need to put my cookbook out of the way so I don't splash. So let me open another jar of this. Hear it open there. So I'm going to put it up to the 5 mark and go ahead and put it in my big pot here. Someone recently asked me about to share like a good brand of a stainless steel pot. I don't know. I looked all over this one and I can't find like a name on it, and Miss Cindy got it for me, and I think she got it like at a thrift store or something like that. It has a lid that goes with it, and she just felt of it and just kind of knew it was a good one, but it doesn't have any markings on it, so I'm not sure what the brand of it is. But if you've got tips on a good stainless steel heavy duty pot, put it in the description, in the comments, and folks can look there. let's see, I'm not going to 4, I'm going to 5. Okay. Go ahead and put it in. Now, what I'm going to do with that one that I opened and this one from last year is I'm going to make us some more of the grape drink I shared recently. We really loved it. So I did equal parts of grape juice and ginger ale, and then I added honey to sweeten to taste. It was really good and really easy to do, so I'll do that and we can enjoy that for supper. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put my pectin in. Another thing, there's tips and tricks, and you can Google and do them about using either an apple or something like that that has a lot of pectin in your jellies to use it. But again, I just take the easy way out. And I actually put part of it in there. I don't want to cook that. Okay, I'm going to stir this up, go over and put it on the stove, bring it to heat, and then I'll be getting all my sugar together while that's coming to heat. It's come to a boil, so now I'm going to put in all the sugar. Try not to spill it. I'm going to stir it around, and then I'm going to let it come back to a boil for 1 minute, and we'll be ready to put it in the jars. I have my jars over here in some boiling water. I'll probably need more than that, but I've got some at least to start with. And the rings. And I've got the taps ready. So it's been boiling a minute. Just start putting it in my jars, my hot jars. You can see that foam that's on the top there. You can remove that. You can put in some butter that'll help reduce the foam. I don't ever do either. I just leave it. And it's not that it'll hurt you or anything. It's just aesthetically it may not look as pretty. Everybody has their own method of filling the jars. I just usually have 2 out at a time out of the hot water and fill one, and then that way I have a place to set my funnel in the next jar. Lots of people do them all at once. You just have to find out what works for you. And a lot of people will take vinegar or something and wipe off the top. I don't ever wipe off the top unless I spill something on it. Then I do. And as far as turning the jars upside down, that was just how I learned to do it. And I'll tell you the reason why. Let me get me another jar. So most canning experts will say that you should, after you fill the jars like this, you should water bath them. Well, I don't do that. I learned to do the open kettle method. And everybody has to decide for themselves. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you definitely should water bath it. You should follow the advice of the experts. But open kettle just means that the jelly there, you can see it's boiling hot. The jars are hot. Oops, I just spilled some too since I was talking, not concentrating. Everything's really, really hot. And then as it cools, it seals. Well, by turning them upside down, it's just like another guarantee that tap is actually hot. Now sometimes I don't even do that, so it just depends on my mood, so it's not absolutely necessary. It's again just one of those things you have to figure out what works best for you and your family. And sometimes I turn them upside down and sometimes I don't. It probably depends on how big of a hurry I'm in. I'm really enjoying my day of putting up today though, because don't feel pressured for some reason. I guess because I know I've got all day stretched before me to do it. I put all the extra that was in the pot right here. I'm going to eat that myself here in a minute, but now I'm going to go ahead and turn them over. Now that I've got them turned over, I'm just going to spread a towel over them, to maybe 2 towels. I'll have to add so many this time since I did a double batch. Get me 2, and I better move my jelly out of the way or I'll have it everywhere. And let them stay under that until they cool, and then double check and make sure they're all sealed before I'll write on them grape and the year 2024, and that way I'll know. And then once they're cooled and I write on them, I'll take them and put them on my pantry shelves. It's a little past dinner time, but I'm gonna enjoy a fresh jelly sandwich for my dinner. I've been hungry. I've been snacking along though on the cabbage and the stuff I was cutting up for that. So this is just jelly, doesn't have anything else on it. So good. Really great grape flavor. Now my favorite jelly is blackberry, but grape's right up there, I guess, in close second. It's strange, you know, how we as humans come up with these combinations of foods that we like to eat together. Probably because this time of the year when I'm making jelly is also the time of the year, of course, that we've got cucumbers growing out in the garden. So I love a cucumber with salt and then a jelly sandwich, and of course I gotta have milk with it. When I was still working at Tri-County, often this is in the summer, this is what I took for my dinner at work, my lunch at work. I would take me a little thing of jelly, take me 2 pieces of bread, take my cucumber, and then fix it all right there and then eat it. And that would be my dinner. I don't know why, I really think it goes well together. It's funny how we come up with those strange combinations. So as far as how much jelly that recipe makes, I'm terrible to never really pay attention to that because I'm lucky in that I have an ample supply of canning jars, so I just keep filling jars till it's all gone. So I can't really say. I would guess like maybe 6 or 7 pints of, if you did a one run. Of course, I did 2 runs. I combined, you know, did it all at twice, but I doubled the recipe. I did it all together, doubled it, but I did it all together. So of course I ended up with way more than that. Now, speaking of the blackberries, I'm gonna go sit down somewhere and eat this and rest a little bit, but then I'm going to come back and I'm going to make some blackberry jelly, which is basically the same exact process that I just did. Let me see if I can find it. In 2022, it's when that grape juice was from, I had just a bumper crop of blackberries, our tame ones and the wild ones around our house. It was just really, really great. So what I did was I canned just there's still blackberries in there, that's just blackberries. And I did this thinking that I would make blackberry cobbler, blackberry dumplings, those things. And I did some probably, but somehow I didn't manage to use them all. So I'm going to drain these, get the blackberries out, get the juice, and I'll have to do them all first and see how many, if I can do more than 1 run of blackberry jelly, I will. If not, I'll just do 1 run. But I'm going to go ahead and use those up too while I'm in my big day of putting up here. And then by that time, it'll probably be time for me to get back on the Chow Chow, which we started with, and I will definitely show you the last steps of that and how to put it in the jar. likes about 3 minutes being 4 hours, so I'm going to call that good, and I'm going to start turn my eye on here, start the brine that we're going to put over the Chow Chow. And I'm going to start with putting the quart of white vinegar in. Here's the 2½ cups of sugar. And I've got all the spices just mixed up together in one bowl. I've got the mustard seed, the turmeric, the ground ginger, mustard seed, that was ground mustard to begin with, and the celery seed, so that's all of that. Leaving a little bit in the bowl there. Go ahead and stir that up a little bit. And here's our little pickling spices. We're going to throw that in there. So we're going to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to lower the heat and kind of simmer it for 10 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and remove the spice bag just so I don't cover it up with the vegetables. Here's, I've drained, this is the first bowl. Put it in there. And I need to drain the next bowl. Okay, we're going to cook it just till it's heated through. Oh, it smells so good. I wish you could smell it. Anytime you make pickles, though, it does smell so good. Get the onions and the peppers and the vinegar and the spices. While it's warming through, I'm going to go ahead and start setting my sterilized jars out. Since I'm going to water bath this, I don't have to worry so much about keeping my jars hot till the last minute. I think we're ready to put it in the jars. So the directions are, at this point, to ladle into the whatever kind of jar you're using. Pint jars is what I've got. I think that's what the recipe says. And then to leave a 1/2 inch headspace, and then to process it in the water bath for 10 minutes. Probably need to use a spoon or your little debubbler or something like that to pack it down in there. Of course, if you drop anything on the top, you can wipe it off. This is really hot, but look what a pretty jar it makes. It just makes a beautiful, beautiful jar. So this is my 7th jar, and that's what the recipe says that it will make. Is, well, I've swapped my wrong jar there. This is my 7th jar, and that's what the recipe says that it'll make. But all the years that I've made it, I always end up with more than 7 jars. And maybe it's because I don't, you know, I don't pack it in tight enough. I'm not sure why, but I mean, I'm always pleased with the outcome, but I just always end up with way more than 7 jars. So I'm on my last jar. Didn't fill it all the way up, but that's okay because I'm going to leave this one just in our refrigerator so we can enjoy it in the coming days sooner than the others. I do think pickles are better if you wait at least a month, but with this one we'll probably go ahead and eat it. And I want to taste it too. Taste it and see what I think. So the recipe almost made double what it said it would. Now you may make it and you may get 7 pints exactly because you're better at putting the stuff in there and packing it all down than I am. So just be aware that you may need more than 7 jars. Last step, of course, to the pickles is I've got to water bath them. So Matt's got my water bath canner out on the porch warming it up, and then it'll take 2 runs of these. I have to do 2 runs, but we'll do that out there because it's supper time. Can you believe I've been in the kitchen all day long, but gosh, I've accomplished so much. So here's all my grape. Let's see how many I ended up with. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to, there's some of them are just jellied half pints and some of them are pints. I call jelly jars the little ones, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 of various sizes, 13 of the grape jelly, of the blackberry, not as many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 of the blackberry, still that's good. I have my big thing of grape juice. The rest of the grape juice I made, mixed it with the ginger ale and the honey. We can have that for supper. And then I ended up with, like I said, 13 of the pickle jars. All this will be so good this winter when the cold winds blowing. If I'm lucky, there'll be some snow blowing. Probably won't be, but if I'm lucky and I get a big snow. But I'm going to taste, it's going to be really hot, but I'm going to try to taste some. And like I said, I think pickles, Chow Chow, dill pickles, bread and butter, whatever it is that you're making, I think they're way better, even the 14-day ones, they're way better if you wait at least a month to let all those spices and the sugars and the vinegar and all that, just let it all marry together. I think they're better. But I can't resist trying this, so I'm going to try it. Spicy. Really good though. Needs to marry a little bit more, but really all it needs is it tastes a little bit of heat too from those hot peppers. Matt will like that. What it really needs though is a big bowl of soup beans and some cornbread. I'm going to put this on top of it. It'll be so good. So I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me today in the kitchen. I'm really pleased that I got this much stuff done. It's supper time, like I said, but I'm going to make a really easy supper. I have a video I can link to, but I'm going to do chip beef, SOS, some people call it, if you know what that means, but chip beef gravy over toast. Matt went and got some more corn from the garden, so we're going to have the corn. And then I don't know why, I always think that chip beef gravy goes so good with tomatoes. And of course this is the time of the year when you have them, so I'm going to cut a big tomato, cut some of those cucumbers over there, have the corn and the chip beef and gravy. That will be so good. I'm tired and I'm hungry, so that'll be good. And it's easy, so it won't take me long to make. I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia. And if you want more information about mine and Jim's book, I will put it in the description below.